podium. Don't ask me. I told Ryan we needed help. None of us are. We'd like to go ahead and introduce the new employees for this month. If you could please come forward when I call your name. Sayabin Brennan, police officer. Juan Estrada, police officer. Corey Glosser, police officer. Timothy Knighton, Jr., police officer. Brandon Owens, police officer. Natalia Wilder, evidence technician. From Public Works, we have John Ravenel, equipment operator 2. Brandon Montgomery, laborer. Scott Freeman, equipment operator 1. James Canty III, a laborer. Robert Anderson, equipment operator 2. Henry Singleton, equipment operator 2. And John Ravenel, equipment operator 2. Yeah, I'd say. I'd like to invite Mr. Burnett and his family and Ms. Jameson to the podium. Have a proclamation. Whereas Mr. Ernest Burnett has lived in College Heights since 1971 and is the original owner of his home. Whereas in 1975, Mr. Burnett retired from the United States Air Force after 20-plus years of service. Having served at Charleston Air Force Base and various other duty stations, Mr. Burnett became a North Charlestonian. He went on to work for another 25 years with Southern Freight Lines. Whereas he is married to Miss Mary Burnett, and Mr. and Miss Burnett are the parents of 4 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And whereas Mr. Burnett is a volunteer at Trident Regional Medical Center, he also volunteers at the Northwood Christian Academy, and he is a great community leader and the go-to person for everyone in the College Heights community. Whereas he brings issues from his community to the attention of the state of South Carolina and the city of North Charleston, street pavement, drain ditches, sidewalks, and he will not accept a no answer. Whereas Mr. Burnett is that person that watches the children walk to the bus stop. He is the person that picks up the trash and the person that cares about the safety of everyone in the community. And whereas when he calls, it's always about the safety and livability of his community. If this community had a little to give to a bold, courageous man, it would be mayor of College Heights. And whereas a grateful community wishes to say thank you to this very caring and humble citizen. Now, therefore, I, R. Keith Summey, mayor of the city of North Charleston, do hereby proclaim September 19, 2017 as Mr. Ernest Burnett Day. Next, we'd like to invite Ms. Cindy Bone Coates up to accept a proclamation. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of health of everyone's overall wellness, and whereas prevention of mental and substance use disorders works, treatment is effective, and people recover in our area and around the nation. And whereas preventing and overcoming mental and substance use disorders is essential to achieving healthy lifestyles, both physically and emotionally. And whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of people with mental and/or substance abuse disorders to implement preventive measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need of appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas to help more people achieve and sustain long-term recovery, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, Wake Up Carolina, Ben's Friends, Friends of the Charleston Center, Favor Low Country, and the College of Charleston Collegiate Recovery Program invite all residents of the city of North Charleston to participate in National Recovery Month. Now, therefore, I, R. Keith Summey, Mayor of the city of North Charleston, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2017 as National Recovery Month.
I want to thank Cindy. She does so much in the community. She's on the school board, and she works within her neighborhood grouping as well. And she's also always out trying to help people who need help. And we greatly appreciate her efforts on behalf of all of us in the city of North Charleston. And I'd love to present you with this proclamation.
Thank you.
And turn the mic over to you.
Oh, okay. Well, so thank y'all for doing this. Actually, this is the 27th year that September has been designated in Recovery Month. This is something that SAMHSA does every year to celebrate the fact that there are over 23 million people living in recovery today. And just to give you an idea, these groups that he referenced, Favor, which is Faces and Voices of Recovery in the Low Country, Wake Up Carolina, which is focused on prevention, the Collegiate Recovery Program, which is coming across the nation as a way for people who are in college, who are in recovery, to have a safe place to focus on their studies, as well as Ben's Friends, which was actually started by Mickey Bask and Steve Palmer because they were tired of losing their employees to this disease. They said, we're going to do something to stop this stigma in the restaurant industry. So I have a challenge for you guys. Our group has come together and said we have all these different organizations. So we've created the Low Country Recovery Coalition, and we are all these groups working together from whatever perspective of this disease we attack, and we are going to be doing a Bridge to Recovery walk that is sponsored by the Mount Pleasant Police Department, and it's September 28th, and I'm only going to ask you to walk halfway up the bridge. You don't have to do the whole thing, but we would like to invite you to come see the hundreds of people in our community that live in recovery that will be walking on the bridge on the Thursday, September 28th. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please continue with the printed agenda.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the North Charleston City Council meetings from the special meeting of August 17th.
Move for approval.
Motion and a second. Any questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison? Mr. Brinson? Aye. Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams? Aye. Mr. Hart? Aye. Mr. King? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mayor Summey.
Aye.
The next item you have before you is the approval of the minutes from North Charleston City Council meeting August the 24th. Is
Move
there
approval?
Got a motion, got a second?
Yeah.
Any questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson? Aye. Mr. Olds? Aye. Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Hart? Aye. Mr. King? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summey.
Aye.
The next item is an ordinance for final reading granting Metanoia an 18-month option for a possible long-term lease of the former Shakora Elementary School.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown? Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
No.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Hart?
Aye.
Mr. King? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summey.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is a final reading of an ordinance authorizing and directing the closing and abandonment of the Willicourt right-of-way.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson? Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Hart?
Aye.
Mr. King? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mayor Summey.
Aye.
The next item is a resolution and a public hearing in support of the issuance of the South Carolina Jobs Economic Development Authority of its Economic Development Revenue Bond for MUSC Strategic Ventures Project. Series 2017, pursuant to the provisions of the Title 41, Chapter 43 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, as amended, and the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $46 million.
This is an advertised public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this issue, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us your remarks. Anyone wishing to speak on this issue? Hearing none, do you hear a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson? Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Hart?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is 9122 and 9126 Timber Street, which I believe has been withdrawn. The next item is first reading of an ordinance rezoning the properties addressed as 7334 Rab Drive in Charleston County, identified as TMS number 47803, parcels 54 and 55, from B2 General Business to M1 Light Industrial in City Council District 6.
Your motion?
First reading.
First reading?
Yeah, this is the new,
Without objection, it will be sent to the Public Safety Committee.
the next item on the agenda is first reading an ordinance rezoning the property addressed as 2703 East Surrey Drive, Charleston County, TMS number 41116, parcel 138, from R1 Single Family Residential to B1 Limited Business, and concurrently amending the comprehensive plan's future land use map for the same parcel, changing from single family suburban to neighborhood commercial in Council District 10.
Any questions by council? Without objection, we'll be referring it to the Public Safety Committee.
The next item is an first reading of an ordinance amending the Ingleside Plan Development District, Charleston County, TMS numbers 39300, parcels 5, 7, 82, 83, 86, 92, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 139, 381, 431, 438, 441, 442, 443, and 444 to make minor modifications to the certain requirements in the PD guidelines in Council Districts 2 and 4.
Any questions by council? Stall Education really taught her how to read numbers. Without objection, it's referred to the Public Safety Committee.
The
Anything
next
else on the agenda?
is Mr. Reverend Rob Dewey signed up to speak.
Reverend Dewey here? Don't see him. Okay.
And Mr. Luther Blanchard.
Yes, sir. Please come forward, sir. You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes? Yes, sir. Please give us your name and address for the records. You've been here before. You know the record.
Okay, my name is Luther Blanchard. I live at 3371 Apache Street, North Charleston, District number 10. As he said, I was here before. And this is in reference to some property located on Apache Street. Street vacant lot, zone residential being occupied and being used as commercial property and zoning. What I did, I sat down some time ago, this is about my 8th or 9th time being here at the city. I sat down and my daughter and myself, we drafted a letter. I would assume all the council members do have a copy of this letter here. And this letter here I'm holding in my hand specify exactly what's going on at this address down there. I was here on many occasions to speak before you in terms of getting something done down there at the lot. And the property owner of that piece of property, he's working down there every day like nothing is going on. I reach out to other source to get some help in terms of getting to resolve that issue down there. I was living down there approximately 40 some odd years after retiring, and I was going to live there until maybe God called me home. But that seemed not to be the situation right now. I cannot get any help from anyone in terms of resolving the issue. The issue needs to be resolved from a residential to a commercial property one way or the other. We had some problem along with the property owner. The property owner damaged my property. We had verbal conference. We had other situations that took place down there. I reached out to other news media, try to get some assistance. I made contact along with the city of Charleston attorney on several occasions. Last time she didn't respond. One time she did come out to a patch of street and look over the property, but nothing changed. The only thing changed out there, with the 4 billy goat lived there, we removed the billy goat cage. As it stands now, this past weekend, there's some 15 truck parked on that piece of property, 3 large tractor trailer, 3 bobcats and backhoe, 4 goats, several iron bars and situations out there in a residential zone. And that's what it's zoned residential, and it's being operated. The city is aware of it. There were several ticket issues. He was fined in violation. He was fined to the point where paying $1,092 on 2 occasions. He was also fined $300 and somewhat if I'm correct, or either 10 days in jail. I haven't seen any result of that. I don't know whether they had corrected the ticket or not, but the problem is of great magnitude. I cannot continue on living there in terms of the way how it's going right now, because he's noisy with those bobcats on the Saturday morning, and they run up and down the field out there, laboring land, and he just don't have any respect for people living in the neighborhood down there. There are other people down there who's concerned about the problem, but they seem to be renters. I am the homeowner of the property living right next door to it, and this is going on as we speak now. Exactly what you see I have in my letter here, that's what's there. I reached out to the news media, but they hadn't gotten any contact back from me because they couldn't get no response from the city. I in turn called the city attorney. Just in June, I never got no response from her. The time that she did show up out there, nothing hadn't happened. So I came here with this resolution this afternoon to let you see exactly why I wrote this letter and what this letter here detailed. I guess the letter here specified to the point exactly what's out there and what needs to be done. I cannot continue on living there the way I zone now. It's a residential neighborhood that I'm living in, not a commercial neighborhood. He was denied 3 or 4 times before the city council here on several occasions, but nothing seemed to get done. And I'm here again today expressing my views of something need to be done. And also what I in turn told you the last time, if this was in any other community, I'm not being out of control, if this was in any other community, it would have never happened. It would never happen. I don't live in a gated community. Cherokee is not one of the better communities, but that's where I reside at after some 45 years of retirement. And I got to live under those conditions, and the city is aware of it from a zone concern. Mr. Mayor, I certainly thank you, sir.
Thank you. And let me just say our legal staff has been out there. And in fact, the report that I got, you can go ahead and sit down. The report that I got is y'all had worked out some conditions that both of you could live with. Undoubtedly, he's not living up to those conditions. We actually went out this week and re-inspected and found nothing that wasn't in the original agreement that had been made between the 2 parties. However, we haven't been out there on the weekend. So we will be out there this weekend checking as well, looking for the conditions, and then we'll get a report back to you.
Mayor Summey.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me, I could ask him, what agreement did you make with them?
None whatsoever to my knowledge. The lawyer did not in turn because the lawyer who he had at one time quit, Mr. Carr.
Now, this was the city attorney.
This was the city attorney, and what she in turn told me she was going to do, have the situation clear of the property where all the trucks are parked at, and have the billy goat's cage. That's the only thing that happened. The billy goat cage is moved. There's nothing been changed there. Okay. And we really didn't come up to a verbal agreement. It's something that she didn't tell me.
We'll check into it and get back with you after this weekend. Thank you, too.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I missed out in saying that a lot of people from the community was here with Mr. Burnett because they were really plotting and trying to make it a surprise, but they were here, and I am sorry that I did not acknowledge them.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Brinson.
Mr. Mayor, once again, our team did a great job during this storm, especially in preparation. And I know you were out and about as the storm was approaching. You know, I hope we will never take for granted that good work, because preparation is so very important. Couldn't have been better from the mayor's office, and especially Butch Barfield and his group. And on a more timely basis, how about the acting clerk? She actually did a pretty good job. We might get home in time for dinner tonight, huh?
She better be cooking. All right. Yes, let me comment too on our people that worked during the storm. I couldn't be more proud of our police, our fire, our public works. We did a few things not so common. We got CSX to come pump out an area that floods next to the Norfolk Southern Railroad line. Getting those two to do something on somebody else's line is not simple. Public Works up in the Pepper Hill area, we've had a problem with the flooding up there. The South Carolina Electric and Gas actually had a little road that you could drive over the drainage ditch, and we felt they had insufficient sized pipes in the ditch, and we asked them to change them. They actually delivered the larger pipes out, but they didn't get them changed prior to the storm coming. So I ordered our Public Works Department to remove the pipes out of the ditch. And we did. I don't think E&G's real happy with us, but, you know, maybe they need to look at how they handle building nuclear plants a little better too. But, you know, the bottom line is we are going to do what it takes to stop the flooding. Our major flooding areas this year, Pepper Hill had about 20 houses that flooded in last year. Matthew, this year we had 2. Little Street had water all over it this year. No houses got water in them on Little Street. In the neighborhood around Park Circle, but on North Rhett, we had a lot of houses that had water get into them at Matthew, but with the pumping this year, none of them had water get in them. So we had great success. So our people were there. We've been doing a great job, our people have, in picking up the trash from the storm. We were blessed. There's another one out there, and we were watching it. I guess the only damage that really came from it, I spent a night at City Hall, and I'm getting too old to do that. You know, sort of rough on the back, but we're going to survive it. It was a great group of people that work for you in the city of North Charleston, and they need, if you see any of them, you see your guys out picking up the trash and stuff, just give them an attaboy, attagirl. Thank them. It means a lot.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I too want to applaud our public service workers for all they did during the storm. The information flow was impeccable. I got so much information until once I put it out there, I had to go to bed. But it was very, very good. I highly applaud Mr. Butch Barfield and all that him and his staff did to keep us informed. The one other thing, Mr. Mayor, that I was a little bit taken aback by was a note that I got on 9/15 from Mr. Ryan Johnson. It spoke on the city and the DOJ cops office spoke, a discussion that evidently you had with DOJ. And again, I'm a little bit taken aback by the verbiage here. And I'm just asking if we could get a bolder explanation, or are we just going to stand as we stand and move forward with our citizen commission and all of those things?
I thought the statement was pretty self-explanatory myself, but the bottom line is DOJ is backing away from their commitment. They're doing it all over the country. It's not just the city of North Charleston. What they will be doing as we ask them for assistance in planning things that we can do, we will be using them for their expertise and things of that nature. The city has complied in every respect to what we had asked for and what we said we would do. It's a whole different approach by the federal government. I have not had a conversation with DOJ. They have not had a direct conversation with me in any shape or form. I think it was Councilman King, maybe a month ago, asked for an update from the feds and what they were doing because we hadn't been hearing from them. And so I wrote a letter to the feds. We never got a written response from them. There was a conference call that was held with the police department and some of the staff, but I was not engaged in that conference call. So I think what we're going to get from them, if anything, is if we ask them to come in and help us with a plan that we have, they will give us the federal standing on how it can be done. I reiterate, everything that we do in law enforcement is something that we were taught at meetings across this country that we went, and they're proven practices that have worked in other communities. We need to know which one of those practices are not working sufficiently, and that's what we were asking for the federal government to give us that information. We will continue to support the citizens group and work with them to the best of our ability to accomplish and make sure that the relationship between law enforcement and the citizens continues to improve.
Mayor Summy?
Yes, ma'am.
Just like to say, Julie,
Ma'am.
glad you're here. Was not aware that Ellen was going to be absent. Hope that she's okay and
She's on
everything
vacation.
Okay.
She's good.
But the meeting has been short because we only have 9 items on the agenda, and it's not because Ellen is not here. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
In regard to the DOJ, just for clarity, and it seems like from my interpretation of what's going on, is it's been a unified, concerted effort across the country, as you've said. And it's apparent from what I've interpreted that we're in compliance and there are no issues and everybody needs to move forward and do their work. Is that a fair statement?
No, it's, I think what we're being challenged with now is to find if there are any inefficiencies in the way that we operate. We're going to have to basically determine it ourselves.
That's my point.
Yeah.
They're not going to be on
They're
the
not gonna
hands-on
be-
day-to-day
correct.
function of what it
And they're
was.
doing this nationwide, like you
Right,
said.
that's the clarity. I'm sorry if I
So,
misstated
no,
it, but
we will continue to look at best practices.
through
I
cops.
will remind you, we have a lot of work to do. If we continue at the rate that we are now, there will be 40 homicides in the city of North Charleston this year. Before the Walter Scott shooting, we were down to less than 15. And by a conservative effort to try to create a better working relationship within the communities, some of the police presence being pulled back, some of the traffic stops being stopped, the rate has increased. And I can tell you, I give a plea to families. Watch your children, whether they're young adults or teenagers. If they're coming home with money in their pocket and they're not working, something's going on and you know it. And you need to step up to the plate and do something about it, because I can tell you 6 months in jail is a heck of a lot better than death. And we've got too many young people dying in our streets because the community is not engaging to the level that they need to do in working with these kids. And we're more than willing to work, but it takes the entire village. It doesn't take the city. It doesn't take the church. It doesn't take the community. It doesn't take the family. It takes all of those merged together to make something occur. And until that happens, there's not going to be a lot of change.
And,
That it?
and Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say one other thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree wholeheartedly with you that we're going to continue. I hope that we continue to work with our citizen commission. And I would also ask our community leaders to come out and say what is going on, what we feel, or some of us feel, is the problem. Because I'll tell you that I too believe that it takes a whole village to raise a child. But I also think that you've got to be on even footing. You know, we have to kind of acknowledge right and wrong and do accordingly. Again, I would want the communities, I would want these community leaders to come out, to challenge our young men, especially, to put down the guns, to come to some sanity level that would make our community better than it is right now.
It is very challenging for law enforcement when we lock up somebody on a Tuesday that has gun and drugs in the car.
Mr. Hare. 2
days later, we arrest the same person again because they were given no bond. They were let out of jail. And we arrest the same people 2 days later. That's why there has to be that collaborative effort, working together. You don't know how. That's like someone painting a house, and they come out the next day and somebody shot mud all over it. It's the same theory. You go out, you do your job, and sometimes it seems unappreciated. And we as a community, instead of beating our police officers down, we got to start standing with them to a degree against the junk that's going on out there so that they can do their jobs and make our streets safer, stop the homicides that are going on in conjunction with the community. That's what it's going to take. But it's going to take that willingness to work together, put the background, the back years behind us, and let's move forward. Let's get this straightened out. It's too many people dying, way too many people dying.
Mr. Mayor, we could have some assistance too from the state of South Carolina receives a lot of grants through SLED to do studies in the communities. Maybe we ought to appeal to SLED in Columbia, and maybe they can do some studies as an outside agency, come and make some recommendations. That would be a help to us. And
under the current administration, any grants that are coming to any state is going to be about how to reduce crime. And what can you get to go in your departments to help you have a larger presence within the community?
Right.
That's the change, and that's going to be that way for the next 3 years.
Well, that's the grants we want to look at, ones that reduce crime.
Mr. Mayor, piggybacking on your comments, until the judicial department, the legislative branch, implements something to enforce the judicial department to implement the strict penalties for the crime, we're going to continue to see this revolving door for these no bond issues and these criminals. That's a lot of our problem, is it's repeat offenders. So if we need to make any appeal to Columbia, it needs to be for them to hand the gavel down for the penalty appropriate for the crime and repeat offenders.
All right. This was a great discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I note that most of these criminal activities are being done by people outside the city of North Charleston, from Indore and other areas coming into our community.
That's one of the things that happens when you have a city of 120,000 people, but there are 300,000 people in the city every day. 200,000 roughly of those people don't live in North Charleston. But while they're here, some of the activities that they get involved in is detrimental to our community. Although there's a very small percentage of those people that come in and do that, the overwhelming majority do abide by the law. And I think that's one of the things that we have to look at. We got to look at drugs, the uncontrollable guns in the street. Chief, how many guns have we taken off the street this year?
A lot of them.
Every single day.
And that was 300. Yeah. I mean, we've taken that many off the street, and you know the problem is only 25% of those are stolen guns. We don't know where the other 75% are coming from. They're coming from somewhere, and there are people in our community who know where they're coming from. And if they don't stand up and report it, part of the blame every time somebody gets killed is on your back as well.
That's true.
All right, meeting's adjourned.